I'm JJ Heller, and this is Instrumental, a show about the big and small moments that shape our lives. In every episode, my guest and I start near the end of their story and work our way back to the beginning. I hope our conversation reminds you that every second matters, because none of us knows which moment will be the one that changes everything.
Big love happens in the small moments.
Hey everybody, it's JJ.
Hey everybody, it's Dave.
And we have a wonderful episode for you today. We interviewed Emily Ley.
Emily Ley, who's that?
I first heard about Emily from my friend Christine.
What did Christine say?
Okay, so she was super excited because her new Simplified planner was about to come in the mail, and she was telling me about it. And I thought, this is funny that she's getting so excited about a planner. And she was just raving about it and how she had been using it for several years, and it just completely changed and organized her life.
Sounds awesome.
I know. So then I started following Emily Ley on Instagram because I thought, boy, I could sure use more organization in my own life.
Yes, you could.
Hey.
I'm just saying. Dog house.
So she's actually one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, she's always so happy on all of her posts, and her kids are so cute.
Is she always posting pictures of planners?
No.
What's she posting pictures of?
Well, she posts about meals that she loves that are easy. She posts about different products that she likes and different kind of life hacks that have been really helpful for her. And then she also posts about products that her company is releasing.
The first time I ever heard about Emily was when we were going for a walk in our neighborhood. And
you and Emily?
Yeah, Emily and I were just hanging out. And I was like, this is the first time I've heard of you.
Let's go for a walk in my neighborhood.
Okay, so JJ and I were on a walk in the neighborhood, and I pulled out my phone and I brought up JJ's Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have a whole bunch of new followers. And we were like, what's going on? And it turned out that Emily had mentioned JJ in one of her stories.
Well, and it was just the cutest little video of Emily. Was she sitting there with both of her kids, or was it just one?
Well, she was sitting with both of them because it was like their bedtime, and they listened to your music, and their kids were like, JJ Heller, thank you so much for making music, and you have a beautiful heart.
I know. It was unbelievably cute.
It was really cute.
So, of course, I sent a video back. And that was kind of the beginning of our correspondence with Emily and her family. And they are just a delight. And you are going to love our conversation.
Let's jump in.
Act 3, Tethered. In 2017, even though on paper it appeared that all of Emily's dreams for her business and family were coming true, in her heart, she knew that she was completely overwhelmed. And so, the creator of the Simplified Planner had to make the hard decision to simplify her own life. Let's hear how things turned out.
So we had our son, in 2011. And then in 2015, we had our twins, Tyler and Caroline, who are 5 now. And it was like a dream come true. Like, we had our family was complete, the business was growing. But the business, at the time of us having infant twins at home and a 4-year-old, the business was taking off like crazy. I mean, it was doubling, like it was wild. It was just really busy. We were hiring a couple new people. And we had received a lot of attention because the Simplified Planner won Best New Product in the desktop category at the National Stationery Show, which is like the world stage for what I do.
Yeah.
And I thought, in order to be successful, you just keep getting bigger, right? And so we found ourselves in 800 stores around the world with this wholesale program that I thought we had to have because that's what everybody did. Here we had our online shop, which was about 60% of our revenue. And that's, direct to consumer type stuff. And then we had our wholesale program where we sold to these individual boutiques and stores. And I found myself on 48 airplanes that year with infant twins at home, had been offered my first book deal. I mean, it was a wild year. And I remember thinking, how dare you feel anything other than just elated? Like, you have everything you ever wanted. One night, we had put the kids to bed, and I just lay down on my bed and sobbed. And Brian came in. He came in and was like, what's happening? And I said, I'm so miserable. And he said, this is what you always wanted. What do you mean? And I said, it's all so much. And it's just gotten away from what I wanted it to be. Like, I started this thing to have flexibility as a mom. Always go back to that. I don't have that right now because I'm so busy. B, like, I wanted to connect with women and empower them and encourage them. And right now, I'm just like taking care of relationships with store owners who are selling to the customers. So it's just so hard. And both of us at the same time, he was like, you know what you need to do. And we need to talk about this wholesale program. It's that whole 80-20 rule of 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. And so in a very calculated way, crunched a ton of numbers and realized that we could probably let go of the wholesale program, potentially make a lot of people very upset on the storefront, have a very interesting conversation with my publisher because that's a lot of lost exposure. But I could spend all of that time, keep my whole team, let them spend all of their time focusing on the women that we're serving, creating great products for them, making it not just them purchasing a product, but developing like coaching for them and resources. And we just had all these ideas. So we cut our wholesale program, 40% of our revenue. I mean, I remember bracing myself for the backlash from everywhere. I sent an email, and it was so long. I kept trying to make it shorter and more brief and more simple, but I just had so much to explain.
You were like, when I was a little girl.
my grandmother was born.
Let me begin by saying, I'm sorry. I was very honest with them that this was a move I was making for my family and for my team and their families, because they were, overworked as well. I explained to them like what the future looked like and that we, were there to support them in any way possible. And not one store owner was upset. I got so many emails from store owners saying, you are so brave and I respect what you're doing and I wish I could do that in my own business. My publisher was super on board because they knew why I was doing it. We were able to keep my whole team, and the next year we doubled our revenue.
That's amazing.
I know, it really is.
Yeah, it totally comes down to like, one, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And then two, like just how important it is to keep your mission in mind. Yeah. Like we've had to make so many decisions like that along the way with our music. It's like, who are we trying to serve with our music? And does this decision align with that? And I think that makes so much sense for your company. It's like you have to figure out who are you serving and how do you want to spend your time?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, when we made that decision, I mean, it wasn't 2 years later, I got an email from another company asking if we were interested in developing licensed collections for Target, Office Depot, Staples, and Walmart. Whoa. And I said no initially because I said, this is just one of those things that's going to make us way too busy. And they asked to get on the phone with me and explain that, hey, we get your mission and we know why you cut wholesale. And this type of partnership would allow women to purchase the Simplified products, to come into the Simplified community at a lower price point, and we would do all the work. And we've been working with them now for, 3 or 4 years, and it's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And like the woman that we work with there is one of my closest friends now.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's incredible that we shut that door and I knew in my gut it was the right move. Even if we lost money, we would adapt. But we made that decision and other doors opened because we made room for them. We made space.
I would assume that jumping back and forth between like business person, entrepreneur to like author is like
Yeah.
a very different state. Is there one that you enjoy over the other?
I think they're like different sides of my head a little bit, and I can't do them at the same time. I've learned that. So I write books in kind of short bursts. I don't take a year to like write a little bit every day. I will take like 2 months off of work or 1 month off of work and just write for 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And my team gives me that opportunity because they handle the other stuff. And so I'll be in book mode, and then I'll be in simplified mode. And then when the book comes out or we're doing marketing stuff, it'll be back over here. And it's kind of like going from work to home, you know, being mom Emily or wife Emily, not just simplified Emily. It's compartmentalizing a little bit. But also, I think there's this misnomer that your work can't weave into your life or your life can't weave into your work. And to me, the beauty of what we've done is that they're very much all in the same vein. I get to talk about being a mom at work. I get to write books about being an entrepreneur. I get to make products for women who have jobs or stay-at-home moms or whomever. They're all interwoven.
I would love to just briefly address what it's like to be mom in this moment in time. You have a book that's going to be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
You're still juggling this business.
Yeah.
And then you have to be mom to all of these kids.
Yeah. This year has taught me so much about the good decisions we made. I mean, suddenly in March, we returned from spring break to find out spring break was going to last who knows how long.
Yeah.
That I had 3 kids with 3 different teachers who had months of school left and a company to keep running. By the way, in a year that do we need planners this year? I don't know. I didn't know at the time. There were these memes circling about the worst purchase I made for 2020 was a planner. And I was like, no, that's not funny. But we had expanded our offerings to include more than just planners, you know, baby books and journals and stickers and all the things. We had built something in place that was helping women navigate complete and total overwhelm. So we've seen an uptick in sales this year, thank goodness. But most importantly, I had created this company to give flexibility to myself and my team. And I have 8 employees. I wanted them to have the same flexibility. So we do things tactically like batch planning for 6 months, where everybody knows their tasks for the next 6 months and can do them independently during whatever hours. All of that stuff was in place so that, well, I didn't realize it was so that when we had a pandemic happen, it was in place so we could do life the way we wanted to. But when the pandemic happened, it was okay. I mean, it was insanely hard to work and do school and all of that stuff, but we survived, you know, and I'm very grateful to have been able to do it that way. My kids are back in school in person for now, prayerfully.
I know.
But right now, I have a great team in place, and Simplified wouldn't be what it is today without the women who work with me. They've all been with me for a really long time. And we're like family, and they're so smart and so talented. And I get to do those other things like write books and do podcasts and all of that stuff because they're handling, you know, the other things to keep the boat moving forward.
When you're home, are you able to leave work behind, or is it still there with you as you're momming?
It's always in my brain, and they're always in my brain. My brain gets really busy sometimes. I work from home, and that was intentional. And so I have a little glass door over here, and every now and then I'll see some faces pop up against it.
Little smudge marks on the window.
Yes. And I had major mommy guilt early on. I mean, I realized at a certain point that I had the option to be a stay-at-home mom who did not work outside the home, whose sole focus was raising the kids. And I felt very guilty about wanting to have something as well as being a mom. And it's only been over the last couple of years that I've started to see the fruit of my children knowing what mom does, witnessing what mom does, being part of it. I mean, my oldest, Brady, he's 9, a book signing we did for When Less Becomes More, He went upstairs and put on, it was here in Pensacola, he put on a navy blue blazer with gold buttons and a button-down shirt, his glasses, he brushed his hair, and this was pre-COVID. He shook every single person's hand and was so just thrilled to meet everyone. Oh, you're from Alabama? That's a wonderful place to live.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was beside myself at what he clearly had learned by witnessing, professional interaction with other people or what mommy and daddy both do for work. And so I think I'm more comfortable these days allowing work and life to kind of intermingle. My kids know what we do. They know what dad does. They know what mom does. They're part of it. Tyler, my little boy, he's 5, is like, Mom, when are you going to write a book for me? You wrote one for Caroline.
Aww.
So the next one's for Tyler.
Really? Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
It is. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a crazy fun mess, I guess. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Have there been any moments over your career where you have found yourself going like, this is it. This is the dream. Like, it's all happening?
When Grace Not Perfection came out and I was doing book signings, I remember going to Barnes & Noble in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I was so nervous because, what if nobody comes, right? And I get there, and there's a ton of people there, and it was really fun. But I will never forget a mom who came up to me with her daughter. And her daughter was maybe 4 years old. She was adorable. And this woman said, what I learned about myself in reading Grace Not Perfection, about my worries and my anxieties and my need to do everything perfectly, I hope she learns it earlier than I did. And so I want you to sign this book for her, knowing that I will gift it to her when she is older.
Oh.
To know that something you wrote or made is going to be gifted to a little girl to help her along her journey in life, that's just amazing.
Yeah, you are leaving a legacy with your book.
That's crazy. When Less Becomes More, I wrote to Caroline, my daughter, and in the beginning, there's a letter to her. And when I recorded the audio version, I almost couldn't even get through it because it's just the idea of legacy to me is so special. Whether it's writing a book for your child or singing a song for them or writing them a letter and sticking it in a box for them to read when they're older, my mom did that kind of stuff for me, and it made me who I am.
Do you have any encouragement or advice for any working moms who might be listening right now?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked that question because I've been waiting to tell the story about J.J. Heller in our family. We have a tradition where, so my kids will go and, brush their teeth and get ready for bed. And I always do what I call turn down service. So I would go in their room, I turn their big light off, turn their little lamp on, roll their sheets down so they're nice and ready for them to get into bed.
Wow.
And every single night, every single baby wants to hear Over the Rainbow by J.J. Heller.
Oh, yay!
So we tell Alexa to play J.J. Heller, Over the Rainbow. And it's that's our time for nothing else to matter, for us to just be together. And it's just a couple of minutes for us to do that and then say prayers and go to sleep. And those, even when the rest of your day is insane or, the rest of the world is insane, having those touch points, those anchors that are the constant, I think it makes our kids, and it makes me, feel safe. It makes us feel like I can count on this, this is home.
Yeah.
This is where I can rest, And so I think things like that, they matter, especially now, so much more than ever.
It's funny when you were describing that, the word that came to my mind is it makes you feel tethered.
Tethered, yeah, absolutely.
Like you're floating on the ocean, but you have this line that you're always connected to that pier. You're not going to float away.
Yeah. And it's not consistent, all the time, and things change. But I think for my kids, knowing, okay, I'm going to have a couple minutes right here with mom, even if the rest of the day is wild, this is our time. This is our few minutes. And it doesn't matter that it's not, 5 hours. The fact that they have those few minutes to me is really, really, just really special.
I love hearing you describe that because when we're in the studio and we're listening to the string players record lullabies that we're making, or as we reach these sort of like really beautiful and emotional moments in the song while it's being created, I have those kind of like bedtime moments or like midnight mom nursing or like bottle feeding or whatever, just sort of like in the back of my mind. And sometimes it just like overwhelms me that
Absolutely.
like what we are making is able to like be in those meaningful, intimate moments with people.
Yeah. I think it helps communicate something too, like the words. I get to be the one. I cannot even with that song. I sent it to my mom and I said, you just have to hear this, Mom. Like, this is amazing. And she calls me back about 10 minutes later and she says, do not send me something like that without warning. I was driving and I'm crying.
Oh no. It needs to have like an operator warning. Like, do not operate heavy machinery while listening to this song.
Exactly. I love that.
You should know, little baby, that I am the lucky one. I get to be the one to hold your hand. I get to be the one through birthdays and broken bones. I'll be there to watch you grow. I get to be the one.
I love how Emily recognized the desire within herself to work and to also be a mom. She's so intentional about the time she spends with her kids, and I really admire how she creates moments of connection with each of them. And these are the things they will remember for the rest of their lives.
And extra points for involving J.J. Heller's music in the bedtime routine.
Yes, totally. We give the extra points. We'll mail them.
In what form?
Points. We'll put them in an envelope. Bonus points.
I think we all know that the real lesson of today's podcast is that J.J. Heller's music gets you extra points mailed in the mail.
Wow. Okay. I think we all know that.
We've never mailed extra points to
No.
anyone. Extra points not included.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, a disclaimer. In order to begin Act 2, we need to take our time machine back to 2008.
Ooh, that's the year that we watched Lost.
Well, we watched Lost over several years because it ran for like 6 seasons or something like that.
Yeah, but was this the first year?
No.
Was this the year that we found out about it?
No.
This was the year that we continued
To watch
Lost. Okay.
Here's what I remember is that we didn't have live TV, but you could stream. This is like way before Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. Like you could go to abc.com and you could watch the entire show, and the commercials were like 30 seconds long
Yeah, and there were only like 3 per episode.
for the entire show.
And then sometimes there would be an episode where there would be a glitch and there wouldn't be any commercials.
And those were my favorite
I know.
episodes.
It was kind of awesome.
We felt like we were getting away with something. You know what was also on in 2008 was The Office.
Yes.
Oh, man. So many good memories of watching The Office.
I know.
This was actually, 2008 was the year that Jim and Pam got engaged.
I was so happy for them.
Gosh, Jim and Pam, I just love those guys.
Remember going to their engagement party? Pam.
Pammy Pam. Well, while the two of us were upstairs in our little attic office space watching Jim and Pam get engaged and whatever mind-bending stuff was happening on Lost, hopefully without any commercials, Emily was on the verge of making some big life changes. Take it away, JJ.
Act 2, How Far You've Come. As a newlywed, Emily found herself very busy in her current job, but not finding the work fulfilling. You're about to hear the origin story of Emily's small business. As often happens, it was birthed out of a season of discomfort. Here's Emily.
We moved to Tampa from Pensacola, and came home to Pensacola to visit for Christmas. And I had always had great jobs. I had gotten my master's degree in nonprofit management, a bachelor's in English creative writing, and just had really great opportunities, great jobs. Moved down to Tampa and had started working with a university down there. Come home to visit Pensacola, and we're in the car on the way home, and I looked at my husband. He was driving. I was in the passenger seat. And I said, I am miserable. And he was like, oh, why? I'm sorry.
Are you car sick?
Are you okay?
Yeah, you need me to pull over?
Right. And I said, the jobs that I had previously, I was really passionate about. It was something I could really pour my heart into. And the role that I was in, I was working for a Women in Leadership and Philanthropy program at a big state university. And I had seen all of these women doing these incredible things, just being bold and brave and making a difference in the community and just thriving. And I felt like I was just surviving day to day. I was, in the car all the time with traffic, and it was just crazy. And I told Brian, I don't feel like I can find that perfect job where I am in Tampa. I feel like I'm going to have to kind of create it. And he's more of an entrepreneur, I think, than even I am. And so he said, well, what does that look like? And I kind of tapped into, what is it that I love most about the job that I'm in? And that was the creative side of things. So very long story short, we went home and I decided I was just going to start playing around with stationery and see if I could teach myself graphic design. I mean, I didn't even have a Mac. I had a PC and a Microsoft Publisher, and I didn't know how to do absolutely anything. Any designer listening to this is cringing because those are the worst things to use. But we also had no money to put into it. So we were Dave Ramseying our way through college loans and credit card debt.
I love that you turned his name into a verb.
A verb.
That's amazing.
Because it actually was a verb at the time. I mean, my little envelopes had no cash left to support any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. So Brian and I just decided, I would just see if I could make some extra money on the side. And maybe then I could, provide a little bit of an income and eventually be a stay-at-home mom. And that was the goal.
And did you guys have any kids at the time?
No, not yet. But we were talking about it. I mean, we were brand new married, but we knew we wanted kids right away.
So this is a good time in life to take a risk.
Yes, absolutely. And so I really just started learning, and I became so passionate about learning the ins and outs of business, about, okay, how do I get a website? How do I get a business license? I didn't know how to do any of it, but I was really good at Googling and watching YouTube videos. And so I just kind of started. I didn't have what I needed. I just worked really hard. I would come home from work at 5 or 6, and I would work after dinner until 2 or 3 in the morning every night for 2 years. I didn't take a paycheck from the business at all. But it was back when Etsy was new and Twitter was the thing. And so there was a lot of free platforms at the time. And things just started to take off really slowly. I'd made note cards for friends and did wedding invitations and that kind of thing. And finally, I had gotten to a place about 2 years in where Brian and I both said, okay, I think the business is doing well enough that we can take the leap. I can leave my full-time job and it won't be as much of a risk because the business was bringing in revenue and had no debt whatsoever. So I ended up going into my boss's office and letting her know that I would be giving my 2 weeks notice. She knew what I was doing. She was really, excited. And on the way home, I really had this crazy craving for Twizzlers. And I stopped at a CVS and got Twizzlers and a pregnancy test. And after years of infertility, came back and found out we were expecting Brady. Same day.
What?
Same day.
On the day you quit your job?
Yeah. My husband was like,
gosh.
oh, okay. I mean, the infertility part's a whole other story that we struggled with, but it was a major turning point in our lives. But it perfectly, set us up for what the life we wanted. We wanted to build that life where I had flexibility to be home with him, to be room mom in kindergarten or go to the Halloween party, whatever. And I wasn't going to have that where I was before. So the business took off, but when it really took off was in 2011. Brady was a very small infant. And I was very, very overwhelmed. I was trying to, manage a company that was growing quickly. It was still just me at the time. The company was doing really well. My son was here and he was wonderful, but needed lots of attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I had what I wanted. I just didn't really realize how hard it was going to be. And so I found myself looking for a tool to help me kind of keep it all together. I needed a solution, really. And so I packed him up and we went to Target and we walked up and down the office supply aisles, which, by the way, is where you find all solutions to life's problems in Target. And so I remember having him in the little buggy, and I was looking at all the different planners, and everything just felt like really overwhelming. And it made me feel a little bit more like a failure than I already felt. Like I was supposed to track how many glasses of water I drank that day and how much money I spent and how much exercise I did. And I was like, I don't need that. I just need something to help me keep my schedule and my to-do list and what's for dinner. And that's it. And so I couldn't find it. We came home and not intending to create a product, I got a binder out with some paper in it and just kind of outlined a planner page that was really simple.
So you just like sketched something out?
Yeah, with a Sharpie. It was really bad. But I kind of sketched it out and I really liked it. And I did a little bit of work on it on the computer and then created the Simplified planner. And it just took off like crazy. I was tapping into this felt need that every woman I knew at the time and now was overwhelmed and wanted to simplify her life with something that gave her a fresh start.
I'm curious to know if you still have that Sharpie sketch that you made.
I do.
Do you?
I have it somewhere. I save one planner from every year so that I can look back on the growth. It's painful to look back on those early ones because I did not know what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the very first planners that I ever made in bulk, we made them domestically the first time, and they cost me $38 each to make, which means we like lost money on that batch. And then the second batch, we made them in China. I placed my first order, didn't know what I was doing, got that first order, pushed a pallet up my driveway into my garage, opened the box, one of the boxes, and realized they were all wrong. Every single one of them. Oh. And not only did I have to call the recycling company to come and get them, I had to pay because there were so many of them. And we lost $6,000 on that. And it was, at the time, it was everything we had in the business account. And I was very active on social media about sharing the behind the scenes of things. And so I had already posted like, here I am pushing the stuff up the driveway and we're going to open the box now. And then, oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, and I can imagine like what an emotional roller coaster that was. I mean, because like, here comes the truck, you're like dancing and celebrating.
Yeah.
Like here they are all the way from across the ocean,
Yeah.
right? How did you tell your social media following what happened?
You know, it's funny. I think part of the reason that I was able to grow a community on social media is because from the very beginning, I was very honest and transparent about the ins and outs and the ups and downs. And so I just shared that they were wrong and that everything was going to be delayed. There was another situation, the very first ones that we made that were printed domestically. They were dated to begin January 1st. They didn't come to me until February 1st. There was a huge production delay because we had oversold. We had just had more than we thought we were going to have sold. And I remember thinking, okay, everyone's mad at me, rightfully so. There's nothing I can do about it. And I got every person's email address. I wrote every single person an email and let them know, hey, they're delayed, this is why. But then I remember thinking like, this is an opportunity to go above and beyond and to do something that will be just really thoughtful and prove the kind of company I'm trying to start. And so I went on Etsy and I bought these gourmet lollipops. They were like watermelon basil and just all kinds of like fun flavors. And I took all my stationery and I hand wrote 500 I'm sorry notes and mailed them. And I said in the note, I let them know that we were going to be refunding like 1/12 of their payment or whatever for that month they were missing. And I said, I hope this makes the wait a little sweeter. I saw more posts of people sharing that thoughtful gesture that was, by the way, like the right thing to do than we did like the planners themselves when they finally arrived. So it was another learning lesson that like it's not transactional, that there's people who they're trusting you and you have an opportunity to minister and connect and build friendships, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just a small gesture to let them know that you actually care about them. Yeah, they're not just like a dollar sign to you. You care about them. You've created a product to actually help them in their life, just like it helped you when you created your own for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You made this Sharpie sketch and then eventually like worked it up in the computer.
Which, by the way, I think you should totally frame and put in your office.
I wanted to throw it away one time and my husband was like, never.
It's like we recently got out the original handwritten lyrics for Boat Song.
Oh my gosh.
It's got a couple of lines that are like crossed out and you can kind of see like we did like the bee and the rose. That lyric didn't make it and like
yeah, it's ripped out from a notebook. It's like folded and crinkled.
And we
That's
like
awesome.
framed it and it's just like in our powder room and so we get to see it every day, you know?
I love that. It's so special.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how far you've come.
Yeah, and what can start from something so small.
Yeah.
I mean, that conversation in the car changed our whole lives completely.
If you were a boat, my darling, a boat, my darling, I'd be the wind at your back. If you were afraid, my darling, I'd be the courage you lack.
I think we should take a moment to acknowledge how important it is to define your experience by putting words to your dreams and discomfort and making the hazy ideas in your mind concrete and tangible. What I've recognized in hearing Emily's story is that things begin to change when she finally finds words to describe her present experience and what her hopes are for the future.
I totally agree. And I think it's so helpful when you write down those things.
Well, it might be why journaling is so important.
Yeah. I mean, for me, sometimes I don't even know how I feel until I start writing it out. And then I recognize it. Oh, yeah. And then there's a certain amount of like freedom and release, seeing the words on the page. And then once you recognize what's really going on in your heart, in your mind, you can start to deal with those things and you can take the next step forward to processing, healing, and getting through it.
Also, I love how honest Emily was with her customers when she made those big mistakes.
Totally. It's something that you and I are trying to teach our kids right now, to own their mistakes when they make them and not to make excuses, but to apologize and to try to make it right. Like take ownership of it.
You know what it reminds me of is like when we used to play a lot of shows and we would be up on stage and we would like forget a lyric or make a mistake or there was some problem with the sound system and we would just kind of like stop and laugh at the moment that just happened and kind of acknowledge it.
Well, and recognize our humanity.
Right, yeah. Hey, I'm imperfect. This weird thing happened. Let's just keep moving on. And most of the time, people would come up to us after the show and say, oh, when you broke your guitar string, that was the best part of the entire show. It's like, thank you.
Yeah, and so I think when, Emily didn't have the kind of product that she wanted to have, to send out those gourmet lollipops made the biggest impression on people. And it's just so endearing.
You're endearing.
Oh, thank you.
Well, in order to start Act 1, we have to go all the way back to 1998.
98.
What are you cheering for?
Well, because that was the year that we both graduated from high school. So that was like the chant in the pep rally in the gym. 98.
I remember when we graduated, I grew up in Arizona, and it was the year of El Nino.
Oh, yes.
That was the first time I'd ever heard El Nino referred to.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots of rain.
Yes, it rained so much. And what it did in Phoenix, at least during the El Nino year, is it inundated the state with grasshoppers.
Ew.
I remember driving past car dealerships and there were just grasshoppers flying around all of the floodlights.
Whoa.
And when I was at the rehearsal, like the day before graduation, I remember one of the groundskeepers was driving a golf cart on the football field, and he drove over just like a patch of grass, and a cloud of grasshoppers was like flying up in front of the golf cart, and they started landing on everybody's laps.
Oh, no. Good thing you all had those like flat hats.
Well, it was the rehearsal, so no one did. But yeah, that was frightening. Okay, so in 1998, Dave and JJ Heller went to different high schools, but were both getting ready to graduate. And Emily was a few classes behind us, still in high school. Let's hear what happened to her.
Act 1, Daryl's. Before she was Emily Ley, she was Emily Cowan. Little did she know that while she was in high school, events were set in motion that would determine her future family and career. This act includes a bartender, a children's toy, and taco salad.
When I was 15, I started dating a guy who went to a different school, but he was wonderful. I mean, he was just such a good guy.
How did you meet?
My friend and I snuck out of her house and went to her friend's house. We met there.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
True story. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Yeah, that's how we met. But he was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. We dated for 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes, so 15 to 25, which is like, looking back is just wild. And we grew up together, really. And so back up a little bit, 16-year-old Emily works at a restaurant in Pensacola. I was a hostess, and there was a server/bartender guy there that I just thought he was so smart and so funny. And he was studying to become a stockbroker. And whereas all the other guys I knew were kind of goofing off, he was just really, like, he carried that book around with him all the time. And that was Brian. So dated this guy forever. We ended up getting engaged and planned a wedding. We'd been engaged for a year, and our wedding was about a year away. So it was a 2-year planned engagement. And I went with my mom to try on dresses, and I stood in the 3-way mirror in a big, beautiful white gown. And I looked at my mom and I was like, I want to go home. And she was like, oh, okay. And I went home and we broke up. It was a mutual breakup, but it was really painful. Like really, really, really hard. I, at the time, felt like I was divorced because like everything I knew included him.
All of your memories.
All of them. Every high school memory, every college memory, my whole future, all I had thought about for 10 years, like, was gone. Because he wanted to be, you know, a young 20s guy. And I was like, no, I'm driven and serious, and I want something completely different. So we just grew apart.
So, like, as you accepted your engagement, were these things already sort of like
Brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. But it was, for me at the time, and, you know, now I'm 37, looking back at 25-year-old Emily, I'm like, come on. It was just the expected next thing.
Yeah.
Like, you've been together forever. You are going to get married, and that is good. This is as good as it gets.
This is how the order of things go.
I mean, I had gone to high school, graduated, went to college, got a master's degree, had a great job. I bought a house. It was time to get engaged, you know? And so he proposed to me in a Panera. I will never let that one go. It was in Panera.
So romantic.
The ring was in an Asiago bagel.
Greek salad, yeah. I remember being like, wait, really? This is happening here? Yeah, we got engaged, and there was a lot of fear there that I really wanted him to be the guy, right? Because he was all I knew.
Right.
And I really wanted it to work. I wanted him to be the best version of himself. And he's a great guy, but he just wasn't, we weren't right together.
Yeah.
And so I think that was my first experience with, like, big disappointment, perfectionism, like, just punching me in the face. Like, I don't want to be the unengaged girl. I want to be the girl getting married next year. This is not what I want. I was hoping getting married would fix any issues of
Oh, gosh.
maturity, right? That's smart. But I had my heart set on so much, and he was thinking much smaller, which is fine, but that we weren't on the same path at all.
Right.
And so when it all got called off, it was the first time in my life I had to trust that God was going to pull me through something hard because there was something better on the other side. Okay, here's the crazy part. So I met Brian when I was 16, and I always kind of had a crush on him, right? It's like I always just thought he was just such a good guy. But whatever. I mean, he was 4 years older than me. We never saw each other again after that year of working together. We had some mutual friends. So
Hang on. Sorry. Like, oh, you were the hostess and he was the bartender. I was trying to figure out, like, how did you come into contact with a bartender? And it's like, okay.
Okay, at that age.
She went to the bar every day.
Right.
Every day I was at the bar. No, he was the bartender / server. He would do funny things like one time a kid left a toy on a table, and it was like an Ernie car from Sesame Street. And he like brought it to me and was like, I got this for you. And it was just flirty and funny. And I was like, you're stupid. And I put it under my bed. And I'm not kidding you. I gave it back to him on our wedding day.
Oh my gosh.
And he still married me.
I love that. Where is that thing? Do you
it's
still
in my
have that
closet.
thing?
Oh, yeah. It's
Oh
in
my gosh,
closet.
put it on your desk. Like,
We're all about sentimental objects over here.
oh
apparently.
yeah, we love that.
I know. I love it so much. And I remember our photographer at the wedding took a picture of him opening it, and his face was just so funny because I wasn't there. I was like getting ready. So a couple weeks after, just a couple weeks, not months, weeks, a friend called me and said, hey, somebody is in town and wants to see you. And I was like, no, I am not interested. Like on the heels of all that, I just, no. And she said, well, it's Brian Ley. And I was like, how fast can I get ready?
Wow. Did your response surprise you?
No, it was rough coming off the heels of that. And there was nobody's name that she could have said that I would have been at all interested in, meeting up with or whatever. But in my head, like he had just been this really funny, smart, driven guy that I always thought was just super cute. Like he was great. So I meet up with Brian Ley that night with a bunch of friends, and we were engaged 8 months later. Like it was just, It was fast and furious. And like we just hit it off on such a like mature, serious, like level that it was just, we both knew really quickly. And it was almost like, is this too good to be true? But it wasn't. And we got engaged 8 months later, and then we got married 8 months after that. And we've been married almost 12 years.
Wow. What did your parents think of all that? Were they like, whoa, this is fast? Or were they just like, oh, he's great?
They knew him. So they remembered me talking about him when I worked at the restaurant.
Wow.
And my dad says now that he remembers coming to visit me at Daryl's was the name of this restaurant. He remembers coming to Daryl's to visit me as the hostess, my mom and dad. I'm very proud of my job, and I seat them in Brian's section. He was serving at the time. And I was like, you have to meet this guy, Brian. He's so great. And my dad's like, what? But they still remember like meeting him that day and thought he was so nice. And so it wasn't a huge surprise when we started dating, but he lived in Tampa. I was a homebody, like didn't go away to college, loved Pensacola. So that was it was hard for me and hard for them that
Is that like a 5-hour drive, 6-hour drive?
7.
7.
Oh.
Wow.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah. And I did that like once a month for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. We ended up getting married and decided to live in Tampa because his job was there. And had I not moved away, I do not think I would have started a business of any sort.
Huh.
It was the misery of the job I had paired with like the loneliness of not having family or friends around and having free time that I said, hey, like, let's see what I can do.
That's interesting. This is so random, but it makes me think, have you ever watched the documentary series Chef's Table?
Oh, yes, totally.
Okay. Well, there's this theme. It's like over and over and over. It's like the chefs study in the US or in their
Yeah.
like native country, and then they leave to go to a different country.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
France.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they work there for like a year or two, and then they come back to their home and
Wow.
then start their company.
And they've changed and grown like so much.
Yeah. And I think there's just something about changing your scenery, getting out of your comfort zone that kind of like jostles you awake to something new.
And it's one of those things where you're pushed. Like, it was hard living in a city without my family and not having friends right off the bat. But that's, I think, where you get stronger.
So it sounds to me like your relationship with Brian was incredibly significant when it comes to starting your own business and having a voice of reason and motivation when things got difficult.
In those key moments.
So not just starting your business, but carrying you through. How many lives do you think Simplified has touched?
Millions.
And if you hadn't worked at It Was Daryl's, is that what it was?
If I hadn't worked
If
at
you hadn't
Daryl's.
worked at Daryl's and you had chosen to go to the mall and work at JCPenney,
Right.
like, who do you think you would be right now?
Somebody totally different. Isn't that bizarre? My parents used to take me to Daryl's when I was a little girl every year on my birthday to eat a taco salad in one particular booth that looked like it was at a carousel. And so that's why I chose to work at Daryl's when I was 16.
Wow.
It's wild.
Wow.
It's just, it is just wild. Isn't it funny to think that those little decisions we make turn into big things?
Well, it kind of takes me back to what you were talking about, that like special moment that you have with your kids every night.
Yeah.
Like it makes me think of like your birthday with your parents at Daryl's.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a moment that's like impressed upon you. And how interesting that one decision by your parents like literally affected the course of your life.
And millions of women.
Yeah.
I'm speechless. I mean, it really is. It's wild, and it makes me think, like, what are the things that I'm doing that I don't even realize are going to impact our kids? We just started doing this thing with our kids because with 3, it's hard to get like real one-on-one time with each one. So we started doing what I call spa day Sundays, where I'll take each one of them and throw them in my bathtub and make them a very fancy special drink with like a Shirley Temple situation. And I will wash their hair really good and teach them how to clip their nails and talk to them about like taking care of your body and like paint Caroline's nails. And it's like 30 to 45 minutes of uninterrupted time with them that has a quote unquote purpose, but really it's mom getting you to sit still for a minute and have a conversation with you. And you're just excited because you're going to get a Shirley Temple and you're clean. So as I've started to kind of realize these touch points and how much they matter, I remember thinking, what if I stopped trying so hard to be great and we redefined what good looks like and the definition of the good life? You know, it took me a couple years into motherhood to kind of realize like what that was. But for me, good looks like having flexibility. It looks like having everybody home for dinner when possible. It looks like quiet Saturday mornings with waffles. Being able to have those things and be grateful for them, like that's just so beautiful.
So everybody knows that comparison doesn't help anyone, but comparing yourself to others is even easier now than it's ever been before because of Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram. So I think it's so wise of Emily to define what good is for her family so that she can see the lives of friends or even strangers on the internet and say, hey, that's great for them, but that's not my version of good for my own family. And to even take it one step further, you know that famous quote that comparison is a thief of joy?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can avoid comparison by defining good for your family, then it's kind of like inviting more joy into your life. Right?
You should start a podcast.
I should. I'm going to write that down right now.
Well, we have one more segment on our show. It's a little recap that we call Let's Rewind the Tape. Emily is an incredibly successful business owner, and she's also a mom who gets to spend quality time with her kids.
Because she made the hard decision to cut down parts of her business that made her and her team more busy than they needed to be.
It's a business that wouldn't exist without the listening ear and emotional support of her husband,
who she first met when they worked at the same restaurant.
But she wouldn't have worked there if her parents didn't treat her to a taco salad every year on her birthday.
That is so special.
I love taco salad.
Oh, no.
To find out more about Emily, go to emilyley.com. That's EMILYLEY.com.
This episode of Instrumental was produced by me, JJ Heller.
And me, Dave Heller, with additional editing by Kyle Henson.
Our theme music is my song, Big Love, Small Moments.
That I helped write.
To find out more about me, listen to more of my songs, or watch my music videos, please visit jjheller.com. That's 2 letter J's, HELLER.com.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Instrumental.
So be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.